gentlemen, and welcome to Psychosec. Can I answer any questions?
What is it all about?
Well, we're a company that produces 100% organic human sleeves. You're probably wondering what's a human sleeve. Well, if you gather around, I can let you know what we do here in full details. So here at Psychosec, we've been able to achieve true immortality by taking your human consciousness and storing it on a device called a cortical stack. It's implanted in the base of your neck, and it collects and stores everything that makes you you. Every memory, every emotion, every sensation, everything you've ever experienced gets stored on this little device. You can see it here on the screen that's about to come up. You guys just follow me.
She sits in the director's chair for her latest project. It's the Emmy-winning Netflix series called Black Mirror. It's a science fiction anthology series described as a modern take on The Twilight Zone.
Well, because it's an amazing show, and a beautiful episode. I worked for Netflix before, and it is kind of like working for God when you work for Netflix.
Here is our final re-sleeving process. Come on in.
It's real. I was the richest man on several planets by the age of 74. The first time I died, I was 99. New technology transferred my consciousness to a new body.
And I'm so happy that this isn't a panel consisting only of tech nerds like myself, because this is obviously not just a question of technology. It's a question very much about life, about humanity, about spirituality. What do we want, ultimately, to do with our technology? This is a question which, at the NIPS conference in California, I just came back from, 8,000 people trying to build this stuff, hardly ever came up. Obviously companies want to build it to make a profit. Tech geeks like me like to build things just because it's cool. But what are we trying to accomplish here? Surely we as a species should be more ambitious than just trying to build our own obsolescence as fast as possible.
There's been a radio series in this country and probably played around the world called What Makes Us Human. This is what makes us not human, isn't it?
I mean, yes and no.
All week, Bloomberg has been live at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas,
displaying amazing new products that raise the bar on personal tech.
Am I in a Banksy exhibit?
Excuse me?
Is this a Banksy exhibit?
This is not, this is Psychosec. We have the technology for you to achieve immortality. Now, this is the final stage.
Introducing new gadgets from VR headsets to AR glasses.
AR is, it projects a virtual world on top of the real world. So you can hold up your phone and you can sort of see a virtual world on top of the real world. Just most recently, Magic Leap, which is this company that's gotten a ton of press, it's been very secretive, announced that they are going to be releasing their headset in 2018.
Now, it's important to catch the eye at shows like these, which is hopefully what this thing is doing. This is the Hypervision display by Kinomo, which gives you the illusion of a persistent image. And in the flesh, I have to say, it does really look rather good.
Everything that you've ever experienced in your life, from when you were a child to now. And we store it in a file called DHF, which is the digital human freight. Everything that makes you you is on this device. Now, all that information can be transferred over from the sleeve that you're currently occupying into the sleeve of your choosing.
If this is also the attitude we're going to take towards machines, because we're stuck in this sort of carbon chauvinist attitude, that then that leads to one school of thought for what we should do. I have a number of AI colleagues who think what we should do is build enslaved gods, machines who are in all ways more competent than us, but they will only serve us, and then whoever controls that can control the world. We even had Putin saying not too long ago that whoever controls AI rules the world, and if we create the intelligence more powerful than humans, of course, whoever, it'll be that way. Which doesn't just pose a lot of ethical problems, but as I explore in my book, it's very likely that that enslaved God will eventually manage to also break out and might...
There's several movies with that as a theme.
Yeah,
yes.
there are plenty of movies. In that sense, what that means is if we actually succeed in creating AGI, we shouldn't think of it just as creating a tool. We should think of it as creating a new life form. And here I think the spiritual dimensions are really interesting, because I feel as a Westerner, raised in Sweden, a lot of people coming out of the have made this really ugly interpretation of the Judeo-Christian tradition of saying that, well, even animals are just tools for us to mistreat however we want, and factory farming and so on. And from that, it's very natural to take the next step and say, well, any machines are also just our slaves. But then there's obviously a fascinating moral dimension to all of this. If we choose to create another life form on Earth that's smarter than us, it's something we should think quite hard about. And if people aren't. At NIPS, people were running all these amazing AI systems that could even beat us in chess and Go and poker. Nobody even thought about the question of whether it was okay to switch them off at will and treat them badly. They just view this as silly, stupid fluff that people who are interested in philosophy worry about. But that's a little bit like we used to dismiss also the suffering of slaves and so on in the past. And I would just encourage us all to have a more broad-minded view of life.
Transhumanism is the belief that the human race can evolve beyond its physical and mental limitations through technology. The idea has existed for decades, but as the science accelerates, the parameters of the human condition could be changed forever. And the idea is becoming more popular.
To some degree, we are already a cyborg. You think of the digital tools that you have, your phone, your computer, the applications that you have. Over time, I think we'll probably see a closer merger of biological intelligence and digital intelligence.
Billionaire Elon Musk is backing a company trying to create a direct link between our brain and our technology. But will such advances lead to tech-based inequality?
We see this merger of the biological sciences with computer science, The result, however, may not be the upgrading of humans into gods. The result may be the end of humanity. It's a distinct possibility that in the 21st century, most humans will therefore find themselves in a new category, in a new class.
But what would a cyborg future look like if a new group of superhumans emerged who would control them? In the wrong hands, cyborg technology could be exploited, and as man and machine come closer, perhaps the biggest question for humanity will be who controls who.
I don't want to ask, but I still want to ask. What's going on here? What's this about? You seeing this?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Well, it's like Max Headroom. It's like Westworld.
Yeah, it's like Outer Limits. Creepy. Hello. Can you alright. Creeped out. Really creeped out.
Chip that you can put all your memories, every site, every fill, essentially you into, and then we transfer it into any sleeve that you like. That we have different ones. So if you want to be, say you want to be a female, we have different ones you can become, different nationalities. Anything that you want, so like I said, can make. We also have male bodies. You want something stronger, something younger, you want to become fit. We have that technology.
Maybe strengthen your body. You have the choice to choose a man or a woman's sleeve. Now, if your sleeve becomes damaged or too old for your liking, simply remove from the cortical stack your DHF, your consciousness, to another, newer sleeve. Any questions?
Am I in a Banksy exhibit?
Excuse me?
Is this a Banksy exhibit?
This is not, this is Psychosynth. We have the technology for you to achieve immortality.
But the talk of the Consumer Electronics Show was also about a technological failure. The fair was plunged into darkness for 2 hours because of a power outage. Now, if only there was a gadget to prevent that.
What stood out to you most, Mark?
The blackout, definitely. That was the talk of the town. But
I'm going to go around all four of you now, and starting with you, Neil, and ask you a similar question. Is this the end of emotions? Because we know what we're told makes the world go round, and that is mystery. It is love, and you're taking the mystery out of life if you do this, aren't you, Neil?
No, the more senses you have, the more you can perceive nature, so the more you can sense.
You're taking something essentially human away, in your eyes, enhancing our abilities.
It's taking what we are as humans, which is pretty cool anyway, but then taking it further, saying, well, we're all right as being a human, that's fine, but well, you know, it's getting a bit boring now. Let's go further. Let's have more sensory input, more means of communication. So we're taking our humanity and putting it on the table. It is going to change us, sure, because we're going to merge much more with the technology, and hence our emotions will change to some extent. Certainly our ethical standpoint, the values that we have, all of those things will be mixed.
And also not always use the I as the point of reference. Even when we talk about I care about these others, what about the others for their own sake? And what about the possibility of the humility that we don't know everything and we are not actually in charge of everything, and that maybe there's something beyond what we know. Humility is not the characteristic quality of Silicon Valley, but I'm going to open this up.
So part of the issue becomes is that, yes, the reality is AI is here and it's going to evolve, But at the same time, we need to figure out, what civic society is going to look like and what the interfaces are going to be.
For a long time, bricks and mortar shops have been trying to keep up with online retailers who have the added benefits of being able to keep track of their customers' habits as well as provide very easy ways of paying. Well, here's one way that we could see some of those features brought into the real world by retrofitting existing stores. iPolly just uses off-the-shelf cameras, one up here to track the customers and others underneath here to take a look at the products and the customers' interactions with them. But the real work is happening here in the AI algorithms, where it's recognizing all the products off the shelf and the customers' interactions with them. But the AI is using the main camera here to keep track of what customers are doing throughout the store. It can recognize faces, identify clothes, and follow their movements. Through the combination of the customer being recognized and the products that they're picking up being identified, when they get to the checkout, they don't even need to scan the items. They just need to pay. And if they agree to being remembered for next time, then all they need to do is go and pick up their products and they can take them away.
I think most people out there are still totally in denial about the fact that AGI is gradually happening. I watched all the debates in the last presidential election, and none of the candidates even mentioned AI at all, even when they debated jobs, right? Most people I know, even very educated people, still think that intelligence is something mysterious, that it can only exist in biological organisms, and therefore dismiss all this talk as just science fiction. All these galaxies out there are beautiful because we are consciously experiencing them. If there were no consciousness in our cosmos, these galaxies wouldn't be beautiful. They would just be a gigantic waste of space. Now, turning to your question, what would AI, if it's really smart, ultimately decide to do? I think to answer that, we first have to be clear on that the mind space available to design intelligence is vastly larger than the mind space available to an evolved intelligence.
Do you think it's important to actually know what it is to be human before we jump into AI or AGI and be very clear about that? And secondly, is there a difference between wisdom and intelligence? And can it be very dangerous to have intelligence without wisdom? Can AI have wisdom?
Intelligence has nothing to do with morality, and wisdom does. But wisdom involves morality. And as soon as you get to questions of morality, purpose, meaning, you get into this fascinating controversy, which I think tech nerds like myself are often quite guilty about running, screaming away from. Many of my colleagues just completely dismiss this as just fluff. It's not in the equations of physics, so shut up, And I just want to push back on that a little bit. And I feel safe doing so in the presence of you. I feel that subjective experience is the only logical foundation one can have for morality, purpose, meaning, and so on. When we look around with our telescopes, we see that life itself is still an almost imperceptibly small perturbation on the seemingly dead and lifeless universe. And despite all the UFO news and the media cycle in the last 24 hours, we have not a shred of evidence yet that there's actually life with telescopes and internet anywhere out there in our observable universe. And many of my MIT students feel like, well, no point in thinking about these questions because we're so small and powerless, one little speck on this little planet in the solar system and the galaxy out of billions of others, and we live only 100 years. What's that in spark compared to? But actually, I've made an emotional U-turn myself in terms of from thinking they were utterly insignificant to very much the opposite, and I just want to end by sharing that personal experience. So I think it's quite likely that in the part of space that we call our universe, the spherical region light has reached us from so far, that we're the only life that's actually gotten to the point of telescopes, okay? And it's also very clear that we've reached the fork in the road where tech is getting powerful enough that we for the first time actually have the power to extinguish life, or to really get our act together, get our house in order and help life thrive.
I think what we're doing is we're computationally empowering different parts of this complex system. Like the market, we already have a system that's out of control, opaque, and nearly autonomous. I think we agreed in Paris that there's no such thing as autonomy except maybe God, right? So I think what's happening is that my concern is that I think we're just going to make things more complex and more difficult and more powerful. And our systems that we have today, that our governments, our corporations, they're already kind of out of control and pointed in roughly the wrong direction. And I think what we're going to do is supercharge them to go reeling off in those bad directions. And so my concern is getting our house in order before, both ethically and sort of systemically, before this power comes.